ACM, Hajka CM, Siaya, Chief Schools not start to stay with you, Chief Yopa not start to stay with you, Squamish. Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? How are you doing? Settle down, settle down. I'm joking. I don't get nervous too often, but I was just talking to my uncles in the back, and they're like figuring out when we're going to go and when we're going to talk, and then I thought, it's just like old memories came back, and I was like, damn, now I'm nervous. But I really believe in what Uncle Daryl and Auntie are doing to make this happen and to bring people together. I see that happening all over North America and actually all over the world in the places that we travel. People coming together and it's one of the loudest places where things are happening and change that is all over the places, I guess, in the United States right now with the Bernie Sanders movement. I do that work that he's talking about, and we talk about that 1% and the inequality of what the society that we live in and what it represents and what it is. And I see the suffering, and I know all the ugly statistics. America spends $750 billion to $1 trillion a year on fossil fuels. To $1 trillion a year, and a $17 trillion debt. The United States government to date has given $1 trillion in subsidies to fossil fuel companies. And Canada's one of the #1 suppliers. So it makes me think of this smokescreen that Trudeau's putting up with his government saying, we need these pipelines for jobs, but we get thinking about that and we talk about that, but what we should look at, and I see Bernie talking about this, what we should look at and what we should be talking about is that $1 trillion that's been spent. Where does that money go? I just saw ugly statistics because I lived in the States for 10 years. My kids are from there, and I don't believe in a border. I have my Lummi relations here. If you could give us a wave, all my Lummi relations, my Bellingham relations. I see Doug and others, and I lived down and I spent a lot of time in their nation, and I said 600,000 people, or no, 63,000 people in the United States went in debt trying to pay their medical bills. And and what is that service and where does that go? Where does that money go? If it's $1 trillion, and you look at places like Norway, they have 4-day-a-week work weeks. They charge fossil fuels 80%. That discourages the use of it, so they have a phase-out system. They're one of the most greenest countries in the world, and they wind turbines and geothermal energies, and that's the direction to go in. But then I start thinking, geez, look at what's happening. Like I had to go to a meeting in Vegas, and that whole place is around the Western dream of how people live and how they're disconnected. And when I was there, thinking of what it represents, then they have water shortages there. By the way, water shortages in Canada and the United States along that line. They say the CLHC population is going to double in the next 6 years. But anyway, that city is the powers supplied by the Hoover Dam. In 3 short years, there's going to be not enough water in the Hoover Dam because of lack of water, to service energy to Las Vegas. Yeah, good. But the reason for that is crazy. Or Panama. Uncle Phil and I, we do trips to Panama and help and work with relations that also help us. And the Panama Canal connects the Pacific and Atlantic Sea, the big bodies of water. They shut down that city 8 o'clock at night to discourage water use. First time in Arizona, they're never gonna, this year, they're not gonna have any farms because of water shortages. I see this around the corner, but even when we were in Italy recently, in France, and we went in the back roads and started checking things out, or when we're down in South America or Central America or Mexico, when we travel these places, they have half the groceries on the shelves. And that's a direct effect. Here, we're spoiled because we have abundance of water. and farms. And it's cheap. So nobody's really feeling that effect. And we're allowing that to happen. So I went to a beautiful movie last night called Us and Them. Uncle Phil's in it, and it's a documentary, and it's about this lady that wanted to help homeless. She ended up helping them, and then what they ended up doing is helping her more than she ever thought she could help them. And it was touching because my brother and a lot of my family are suffering and hungry, and still those ugly statistics of our Indigenous people, what they are. You know, only 3% of Canada's population, but we're 40% of the jail population. That's a direct effect of colonization in residential schools. So I think of them with all the statistics that are stuck in my head, and I think, geez, in 20 years, who's going to live? Who's going to survive? Who's going to be hungry? Who's going to have no water? And I thought about that a lot during that movie. I think, God, you're asking for stuff. You don't have money, and what does that really mean in 20 years from now? When big land masses the size of Arizona are not going to have a farm. If it's already happened in Europe in those back roads that we went along, or in South America we back along on those, have the groceries on the shelves, that's why they're doing something now. They're starting to see and starting to notice that there are problems that are happening. You know, and what this society was built on is that greed. It's such a powerful spirit. You know, everything has a spirit. Alcohol has a spirit. My teachers say, when drugs and alcohol, as soon as it enters you, your spirit leaves. And that greed too, it's like that. And you know, I go and I see somebody on drugs or alcohol, and I can see no spirit in them. You look at them right now, and you can't see it. It's not that it's not around them; it's still close to them. But I look at that people, and some business people that we have meetings with, this Tsleil-Waututh Nation, and they have the same look, same disconnection, and I feel sad for them too. Now, we meet down with municipal, federal, and provincial members of our government, and I look at them and I think the same thing. And I said, geez, these are the people that are in charge of our country and the direction that we're going in. And I'm sorry, they don't care about Panama and what's going on, or Arizona. They don't care that in Alberta tar sands, when we went, you know, I went a couple times, and my mom was talking to a girl, and they're both crying. She goes, "Come here, son, come talk to me, come talk to her." She goes, I was watching on the news that you guys, this is with Joel James from Lummi Nation, when they're delivering a totem pole to honor those nations that are standing against the Alberta tar sands. And she said, I saw you guys on the news, and I wanted to come tell you my story. And my mom said, show him. And she rolled up her sleeve, and she had blisters all over her body. And she said, this is everywhere. And I said, this is how cancer starts. She said, my children are in the hospital and getting treatment now. He said, the doctor said, we can't bath for more than 2 hours. 2 minutes at a time, or this happens. And I told them a jar of water, and she goes, that's how we bathe, that's how we cook, that's how we drink. And so the people are dying. A $1 trillion industry, the media, they say what they want. They come in, and we've seen that in South America. For doing the work I do, they kill them down there. They do. I think it's when we're there, last visit, they're telling us 17 people got murdered. And 170 were injured. Some had their eyes, just brutal things. That's that $1 trillion industry that we supply. More mining company owners in Vancouver than anywhere else in the world. But what I'm saying, it's that whole same machine that creates that to happen. And I've been saying this the last couple of years at the Indigenous gathering. If you come and you get your spear fed, and I do, because I was talking to our lawyers, a group of lawyers, all the key lawyers that are fighting fossil fuels in British Columbia. And I had a cup of water in front of me, and I said, this is Tsleil-Waututh. This water right behind us, and that means that's where I'm from. Tsleil-Waututh means people love that water over there, between North Vancouver and Burnaby and North Vancouver. That's Tsleil-Waututh. That's what it means. That's the lineage of where we come from. That's our mother. And so I held the water and I said, it's my mother, but I have a spiritual connection to this water. A spiritual connection. It's my lineage of who I'm from. And I share this all the time, and I'm going to say this really quick. My daughter, she went to drop off my son, but she's 17, but it was my mom when I wasn't married, and I'm not married right now, and I don't have partners, so my mom used to carry the bucket for me for ceremony. She owns my chief's bonnet, my water bucket for my sweat lodge, and my pipe. She directs me on how to conduct myself in ceremony. My mom used to, but now my mom retired Sundance, and my daughter does. And she does the same thing for my son. It's her that leads our family and gives direction on how we're going to do things. But my daughter, she lives in Seattle. As soon as I get in my car, I start driving down, and I share this all the time with everybody. When I speak like this, I start to feel happy already because she's going to connect with me. I'm going to have a father-daughter connection. And I'm going to feel good. And then I'm going to leave and come home, and my spirit's going to be uplifted because we just love each other. Dada, and I'm happy. My son too. He's 6'6", and I was brushing my teeth in our bathroom. He goes, Dad, get out and go to your own bathroom. I said, I pay the bills, so I brush my teeth where I want. And he picked me up, and he walked me aside. And he put me down, and I was like, that was scary. and he says, didn't think I could do that, hey Dad. Then he goes, pats me on the head. I love you. I love you, little Dad. I'm 6'2", it's like. But they feed my spirit, just like how we laugh and how we enjoy each other. And I told these lawyers that, and I said, this is the water. But when you look at Tsleil-Waututh Nation and my other nations, that we have stories like this. And I heard some Lumbien, and my elder from Musqueam, I heard stories, beautiful stories. And I talk about that story of Tsleil-Waututh. I talk about that. That's where I come from. But to lead up to that story, when you tell it properly, will take about an hour, at least. And you could go on days with that story. That's what our ceremonies used to be out, our call actions used to be out. Talk about that story for days. And what comes out of it is, it's our mother. Respect your mom, love your mom, have a connection to your mom. How did that happen? What does the water represent? What is the life that is in the water? How do we treat it with respect? How do we care for it? Water's been everywhere. It's been in our brains, in deserts and glaciers. It's been frozen for thousands of years. Has knowledge and wisdom, has power to create the Fraser Valley. It's so gentle it could nurture us and make us feel better with a nice bath. That's all the lessons with water. And those are all the lessons that would come out of that story. So I told those lawyers, I said, those are our laws. Those are our laws. I said, now you got the dubious task of explaining our laws, of how we govern ourselves as Natsamat, as one heart and one mind and one prayer, how we govern ourselves. And you have to explain it to people, like those fossil fuel company owners, like the government, like all these people who don't. You have to explain spirit of who we are as Tsleil-Waututh to people who don't even recognize, because I see them and I look them in their eyes, a spirit inside of themselves. And at the end of the day, we still tell them, and I say, you know what? I went down to Kinder Morgan, their AGM. We snuck our way in there and got an invitation, and it went really well. And I told them, I said, the Canadian Constitution protects our Indigenous rights. I held up 70,000 signatories that we got in 2 days that supported the Tsleil-Waututh Nation in stopping you. I said, we're winning 97% of our court cases on resource extraction in British Columbia. I told them, we're going to beat you in court, and even if we don't, we're going to do whatever it takes to stop you, because you can't do anything to our mother. And after that, 3 months later, their stock fell in half. $140 billion company, their stock fell in half. Their dividends got cut by 74% to the shareholders. So really happy. Well, I'm going again in 2 weeks. I'm going to go to their AGM again and explain this to them. That it's a house of cards that is about to fall. And you know, what I say at these gatherings, when I say, do you come to the gathering? And And do you get your spirit touched by the words and the feelings like what's happening in this room here today? When they do that ceremony, my Auntie Mally, when she comes and does the bear dance, and my relations sing that song, they start to create this place to be a holy place. When you feel comfortable and you start feeling good, you'll let your spirit expand to the size of this place. And when you do that, your ancestors will come down in the middle, and that's what ceremony, part of it, what I believe is what it's about. Because then your ancestors, we overlap each other with our spirit, and our ancestors come down in the middle and we get blessings. That's a gift. That's the gift that Mally gave us, and my uncle and auntie and my relations came, and when they sang those songs, they did that dance. That was a gift to open it up in a good way, to have our spirit touched. Just like how it's a spiritual connection that I have with my daughter. That's the same thing that happens in these ceremonies. And if it happens for you and you go along the lines of what these stories and these songs and these dances represent, that they are our laws. They are our laws, and then they're showing you a little glimpse of where you come from and what your laws mean. And those are the teachings of humanity. And when we come from that place, we have a responsibility to do something, to change something. When I talked to my kids, I said, if I do this environmental stuff, and I was doing family therapy for 15 years, and I was 95% successful rehabilitating people, I said, I'll make less money. Then they said, no, Dad, they didn't say you could do it, Dad, let's do it, Dad. My daughter came and spoke. I was proud to say she was in Paris, and she got 1.7 views on her Twitter on her work, and she did 1.7 million. I've not left that part out. Views on her Twitter for doing that work, but there's a responsibility. And my kids said, yeah, let's do it together as a family. I got my mom involved. She went to Burnaby Mountain and said, locked herself to Kindermartin Gate and said, nobody's getting through today. That's my mom. Hurry her up. That's how I said. How did you get touched by spirit? And it's those lessons and the stories that are our laws about who we are and what we represent. I encourage you to follow through with that and do something and share it, because that's your responsibility. This isn't a ceremony that we just do for a couple hours a day. What my auntie and uncle and my relations do, and what we talk about, and what my uncles will talk about, my aunties will talk about. It's a way of life. And then trust me, don't look at me as a good example about how to be, because I'm not. I come to these ceremonies to take care of myself, because I have to let go of that hurt and pain that I've been carrying. And I'm doing the best I can. What I could do is talk, and that's why I'm here. But what I can do too is stand with you when these ceremonies are happening, and share my spirit with you. That's what I could do. But when that happens, I take this work and I touch as many people as I can all around the world, and I say we have to do something. Because the people who are going to suffer, and we're going to see soon if we don't do something about it. I can't be in ceremony and feel good about myself when I see somebody suffering like that, and mass people suffering. We have to stop that 1%. And it starts with prayer. It starts with prayer. Whatever we did as Tsleil-Waututh Nation, whether it's economics, was prayer. Social development was prayer. When it was environment, it was prayer. It's always been prayer. Right now they're doing a ceremony that's the closest to what we believe to have to God, and they're doing that ceremony. And it's always been prayer to take care of one another and to help each other heal, so that there's nothing standing in our way. Like with me and my daughter, I let go of all my hurt and pain and suffering of anything that creates anger and dysfunction in my life or drama. I let all that go so I could have the best possible relationship with my daughter and son. I do that. I try that. And I try to create that. And I want that. Let it go so I could stand in front of Kinder Morgan and maybe have my words when my grandpa say, speak so that your words will touch onto their hearts. Touched onto the being of their spirit of who they are. Because they're a human being. And I've been saying this all along, because they're too dysfunctional to do anything for their future generations. Because they're just too stuck in that spirit of greed. They won't do it for their kids. I will. They're part of the human race. And we all are. So I thank you so much for coming and taking the time to listen. I thank you so much for sharing your spirit with me and with these children here. I'm going to go home and I'm going to be uplifted. And I love each and every one of you. All memories. So thank you.